fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Hello, Salt Strong Nation. Joe Simons, like diamonds. We are back. Got my friend Captain Mitchell, Blake Fish IBX Charters. If you've heard the name before, it might be because he was on one of our Salt Strong videos. We did a video a little while back on red drum around docks with one fish, two fish. And Captain Mitchell was the guest on there, and it was awesome. We had so many people say, man, I learned so much from that dock video. And that was the one where you basically said, here's the perfect types of docks to fish for redfish. And that was really, really powerful. And then you and I have been chatting offline a little bit. I've been seeing what you're doing in the striper world, which I think is fascinating because we don't have the stripers down here where we are near St. Pete, but I know they're in the Panhandle and all over Georgia, all the way up to, New York or Maine. I don't know how far up they go. I'm going to learn a lot on this one, so I'm pumped for it. And this is going to be all about catching stripers, aka the striped bass. So, Captain Mitchell, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, Joe, appreciate you guys having me, man. I'm pretty excited. These stripers are kind of what we're targeting right now, and it's been a big portion of what we do at Fish IBX, man. So I appreciate you having me on the show, man.
Absolutely. And so IBX, for those, because I did not know what it meant. For those of you that maybe are not in the Carolinas, that is really the Inner Banks. And you've been targeting striped bass for what, decades? How long?
Yeah, decades. Actually, it was kind of the fish that I grew up catching, man. And man, if you go all the way back to when we started till now, it's been, gee whiz. Well, I've been guiding for them now for 20 years, so it's hard to believe it's been that long. So, I fished another 20 years for them since I was a kid, basically, and on the same system. So, very fortunate to be able to guide on a system that you've been able to see for decades now. It's kind of unique, man. And just when you think you got it figured out, you realize you don't have much figured out, or maybe you just get to see the transitions. You know what I mean?
And I'm willing to bet over those 40 years or so, you've seen a lot of changes in the striped bass fishery, huh?
Absolutely, man. Yeah. That's I kind of grew up in a small town, Jamesville, that was well known across North Carolina, and probably beyond that for the herring run and for the striper runs, and it's on the Roanoke River system. And I think if I'm stating it correctly, I think we're still number 3 on the eastern seaboard for striped bass run population wise. So it's we've got a good thing, man. It's not a very big river, and a lot of fish come through it. And
so, as a kid, were you catching them from the shore too?
Man, it's it was growing up as a kid on this river. Everybody participated in the fishery. If you didn't fish, you went down to watch people fish, and it was community, And I always, as a kid, when we got out of school, when the school bus stopped, we would hop off the school bus, and it was a dash to get to, it was a real small marina, just a mom and pop marina shop on the creek. And they rented boats by the day. People came and fished from all over, and, there's the main river system, and then you have all these stems that come off, and, folks, it was everybody. When you got off work, when you got out of school, you went fishing. And that's the way it was every day. For the entire spring run. And it was, kind of watched that fishery change forms. The herring run, which was so popular. And even in the river system, they were allowed to net herring, dip herring. There were all kinds of things that went on that, it was a big to do, man. And like I say, as a kid, that was what you got to see every day. And kind of behind the herring were, these just runs of stripers. And like I say, it would be, if you didn't go to the river to actually go catch the fish, you were going just to associate with the people catching fish.
That's great.
It was a cut bait fishery mostly. People were using herring, bottom rig, just anchored up or off the shoreline, and you'd catch your fish, and it was. But I saw that entire fishery change. There was a lot of word on the herring stocks being depleted, and we saw it. Less and less herring run. The runs were less and less, and we saw it firsthand. But I was getting ready to go to college, and I was trying to think of what am I going to school for. I ended up going to school for fish and wildlife management.
Oh, cool.
And kind of that fishery was starting to evolve. They started pulling the reins back on, the netting in the river, the set nets, kind of drift netting, and you really saw that fishery change forms, man. And when I got out of school, of course, I started guiding some part-time. And, you could, the way we did that was, herring on the bottom. And I could foresee that fishery going a different direction. So I started using artificials, man, probably 23, 24 years ago.
And no one was really doing that like that. Everyone you said was more live bait or cut bait.
It was live bait or cut bait fishery strong, man.
Got
and,
it.
a few folks threw bucktails, the good old rattle traps. There were some artificial lures that folks would use, but I bet 80%, 85% of that was herring on the bottom. But like I say, all that came to a pause, man. And, all the buzz on the shoreline, folks really kind of slowed down fishing that fishery, man. It was shocking to see. I mean, used to the banks wouldn't have grass on it. You know what I mean? People would, they would walk the banks down, stamp the banks down, and now it's, you don't see folks fishing from the bank anymore. So that whole fishery, man, but I guess as a guide, whenever I started throwing, I hand tie bucktails and throw soft plastics and hard baits. And, when I really started trying to learn that fishery on artificials, because I knew it could be done, it actually kind of opened my eyes to something that I didn't know was happening. We always used herring because herring was the resource, and we fished for stripers when the herring were there and available. And when I started using artificials, it changed form. We figured out, hey, the bite window, the time that those fish started running and we were able to catch them really expanded. But no magazines had done they'd never done any articles on that fishery outside of its quote window. There weren't any guides in the area.
And what's the window, just for those listening? What's the traditional window, and how are you catching stripers year round? I mean, I don't know the answer personally.
It is a great question, man. Traditionally, that fishery was sought after pretty much when the dogwoods would bloom.
Okay.
It was an April, kind of March, April into May fishery was when it was most popular. That's kind of what was driven everybody. But we found that this fishery is actually, there are fish that come in the river and will stage and make spurts like pre-spawn runs. And this starts sometimes in December. We find January and February are phenomenal months for the first push of fish to go up the river. It gives us right on pretty much January, February, March, April, May, and June. So, you know, it's like a 5 to a 6 month fishery now, whereas it used to be a 2, maybe 3 month fishery. And of course I started promoting it because once I started, you know, learning how to catch these fish and really catching numbers and really, you know, producing, of course I started advertising it, you know, through my guide service to try to get folks to come. And, you know, we kind of watched that whole fishery change forms, and it started gaining momentum with the artificials. I mean, now there's 3 or 4 other guides, full-time guides on the lower portion of the river. The upper portion, where all these fish run up the Roanoke River to spawn, is full of guides. You know, they kind of jump in and really take advantage of that tight window still. But there's several guides now that fish these striped bass from the Albemarle Sound all the way up the Roanoke River to the spawning grounds and then back out. So it is, and then, you know, now they're advertising to people and catching momentum with folks on YouTube and catching momentum with writers. And it's starting to get that old buzz back, man. It has been but now it's all artificials, you know, so it's, it has been watching a fishery go full throttle to silent, and now watching it go back like somebody's mashing the throttle again. It's been very, very interesting to watch it.
Is it healthy? Meaning overall with the stripers and you guys still have the herring run? I mean, I know you guys have made some changes with the commercial netting and maybe some of the drift nets. I know we had a topic come up recently about, you know, some of the gill nets and stuff still in North Carolina, but is it feel like it's on the rebound? Like it's a healthy fishery now?
It is. Matter of fact, we were fishing the other day. The past several years, they've really, North Carolina had to really buckle down and start looking at their fisheries in finite form. I mean, the public is demanding it. The fishermen are demanding it. Everybody's demanding it now. And so the herring fishery went to a moratorium, a complete closure, everything, net side of the water in the river system. Changed forms, went silent. Said they were taking a look at it, said they were doing studies. Nobody kind of heard a word on it. And I'm talking 1 year went by, 3 years went by, 7 years went by, 10 years went by. And from a guide standpoint, being on the river, like we used to watch the herring wash through the swamp, just rushing, schools of them. And you didn't see that so much. And now we're back to where the season's not open, but we're catching them. We're catching them on, on hook and line while we're shad fishing. And seeing them, rush through the swamp again. And it's all cool stuff. Matter of fact, I took a group the other day and we went and caught some stripers, and the striper bite was kind of slower off for me that day. Matter of fact, we were having a dead stick to catch the stripers. I said, hey gang, we got a couple hours left. Let's go do something really cool. If you say it's not cool, then we'll switch gears. And we actually grabbed the fly rods. And I went into some flooded timber because the river's up really high right now. And the herring were kind of washing through the timber, through the runs, where the water's rushing through. And we were throwing flies up there, catching them on fly rod.
That's cool.
And, that's kind of really cool, man, because that fishery, like I say, we watched it go from wide open to really dried up, and now back to where, I mean, you catch them on fly rods, and it's not even peak time for them to be here right now, but, there's some here. So, but, the striper fishery is kind of the same way, man. It's been a really good situation, and a lot of folks are taking advantage of it. And, the rivers to the south of us off the Roanoke, I also fish those and guide those, but, they've got a moratorium on the striper runs on those right now where you can't keep any stripers. So the Roanoke is kind of the last system in North Carolina currently right now that you can that has a keeper season, and starts March 1, runs to the last day of April.
Got it. And what's the limit now in North Carolina?
2 fish, and they've got a slot in there. You can keep 2 fish per person. 18 to 22 inches that's your sweet spot.
Got it.
And they allow 1 fish over 27 inches, but 2 total. So you can have 1 over 27 and 1 between 18 and 22, or 2 between 18 and 22, which is what most people see as 18 to 22 inch fish.
What's considered a monster striper, like a trophy one?
I would say, man, we catch a lot of fish, and a couple of shots a year we'll get, fish 10 to 15 pounds. A lot of the fish we catch are, 1 to 10 pound range stuff. I always say when you get a shot at those over 10 pounds, that's when we start, that's really high-fiving. And I think there used to be a lot bigger fish in the system. We used to get a big push of ocean fish that would come down. We haven't seen that in maybe 10 years now. So all those fish used to sweep down from the north and kind of come through Oregon Inlet and run through the river systems. But I don't know what's changing there. I know they're looking at that pretty hard. But so now we get a lot of fish that are, like I say, 1 to 10 pound range is just your average fish. You can catch a lot of them, and we get shots at that 10 to 18 pound range every year. We'll catch a couple of those. So it's good stuff.
Heck yeah, man. I love it. All right. Let's talk about tactics, best types of areas. This is completely new to me. I'm willing to bet, just like largemouth bass or snook or redfish, you're still trying to maximize structure, maybe hitting points, but I'd love to hear kind of your favorite types of areas and certain trends that you like to see, best lures, and we can kind of hit, one of those at a time, or moon phases, anything special that you think is helpful.
Absolutely. Growing up fishing, I kind of grew up, striper fishing during the prime and, prime months, and, bass fishing and stuff. So whenever I used to go to the river, and as I've had a chance to get older and fish other places and come back to the river and, think about patterns and how fish respond in different areas, one of the main things that I do now on that Roanoke River, because it flows, it's got a lot of flow to it, is actually fishing eddies and current breaks, current rips. Almost something like you'd think about in a mountain stream, but doing that on a big river system. And what I have learned is these fish are headed upstream to spawn, and they will make runs, burst, and then they're going to stop and rest. And that's what I like to target now, are these fish that are either setting themselves up, feeding, or resting.
Got it.
And I'll break that river down. I'll run that river, and as flows changes, because they can release from the dam, whatever they want to see needed to release. So your water can fluctuate, even from, I'm talking about the whole river system. It can fluctuate up and down really quick. So every given day may fish a little different than yesterday. So I really just kind of dissect the river for the day that's offered and look at how these seams are running, how these current breaks are running, how these eddies are holding, and fish that.
Interesting. So you're doing a lot of on the water, kind of pre-trip planning, meaning you're out there scouting, not as much. I'm sure you're still looking for, points and areas of the river that
Yes.
that might look good from a Google map, but it sounds like a lot of it is just on the water. If the water's fluctuating, I mean, because you're talking feet, right? Like many feet could be changing in a short amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, you can have a solid week of just the water outside the banks, through the swamp, flooded timber, and you launch your boat and it will intimidate you. And then it could be a week of falling water, then right back to a week of flooding water, and it's a lot of folks will put over on the river and think that there's they're like, what are your favorite spots, or are we going to your favorite spots, and or do you mind if I take note at where we're fishing at so I can come back? And I say, every pattern every day is going to be different, man. This pattern may not be here tomorrow. You've got to read it for the date it's given. And that's when other guides started fishing on the river, and kind of comparing notes and what have you. It's that way across the board. Your top guides, your best guides, I think they hit that river every day with maybe a game plan in their head, but they're actually dissecting that water that day. And fishing, you've got to be really observant to be good at it, day in and day out when that water's going up and down, up and down. But it can be done, man. There's an art to it.
Is there a better one? Like when you hit the ramp, or you're like, oh great, it's going out or it's coming in, rising or falling. Is there a better one in general for stripers?
I like it. Honest to goodness, man. We fish it during the wintertime and right on through the spring, and kind of dabble in the first part of summer before those fish kind of exit that system. But I'll kind of talk about right now because we're in it. What I really like is I like high water to get the flow, because that brings the fish on, you know what I mean? And then I like, if I could draw out a perfect scenario, it would be falling water after a 4 or 5 day warming trend. And what happens is when you've got so much area of surface water, and when I'm talking about the swamps are completely flooded, there's water flowing through them. Whenever you get 4 or 5 days of that water warming up, and then it's kind of coming back into the river, then you'll hit little pockets, little warm pockets. I always kind of describe it as like little pockets like the Gulf Stream.
Okay.
You'll get that warmer water from the swamps kind of easing back in that colder water in the river, that deep water, and you can find those seams, man. You can really catch some fish. You can catch some pretty fish. It can make it look like you know what you're doing.
That's funny. So let's talk about. I'm just trying to visualize this. Just the boat positioning and casting. And let's just say you've got some people on your boat who are good anglers, but this is all new to them. Like for me, it would be completely new to be fishing a river that might be moving like crazy. How are you doing boat positioning? I assume maybe you get a troll motor depending on how fast it's moving. And how are you actually fishing these areas?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. I had a guide with me the other day that fishes a river, very, very similar, a lot less flow. And he and I were talking about that. And he was kind of, his method on a river that's to the south of us is actually drifting with the current, casting to the shoreline, casting to your ledges, mainly with heavy lead, soft plastics. And on the river that I'm on, which is flowing a lot harder, a lot of times I'll get stationary or lock the trolling motor in, or even anchor in some cases. And I'll use a little bit heavier lead so that I can work the ledges faster. And that seems to work really good for me, but I'm using, I throw a lot of like 3/8 half ounce sometimes even 3/4 ounce stuff.
Dang. How deep is it?
Fishing stuff from 10 to 20 feet deep.
Okay.
And basically what I'm doing is I'm pitching that lead up to the, to the bank. Well, you really can't see the bank, but actually to the edge of the timber. And I'm feeling that bait as it falls and sweeps with that current. And you want to position yourself ahead of where you think the fish may be and let that thing sweep right down to them on tight line. And when it hits the bottom, you're going to hop your ledges. And the fish may be on the first ledge, say that 0 from 10. They may be on the second ledge, that 10 to 18, or the third ledge, which could be 18 to 20, 24. But the second ledge is where the stripers, they really like that. They really like that first and second ledge. The third ledge, most anglers get out of touch with that third ledge, that third drop. But it's you can catch them there, but it's a little bit more difficult fish to catch.
And are you guys are they ever at top? Like you doing top water? Is there a time of year where they're just feeding all over the place?
Yeah, it's as the water warms, it seems like wintertime is an excellent time to catch a load of fish. I'm talking about really good numbers of fish. That's just simply because the fish are correlated most of the time to the bottom, to a ledge, to a drop. And there's usually a lot of fish in a little area.
Yeah.
As the water warms up, what you'll have fish that correlate to your ledges or your bottom contours. And then you'll have some fish that are trying to suspend on you. As we go into spring and even in the warmest parts, you'll have fish that'll be on the bottom. You'll have fish that'll suspend, and you'll have some on the top. So as an angler, you'll scratch your head and say, okay, which fish am I going to target today? Because all three scenarios, you target a little bit different. And with that said, that's one of the reasons why I kind of get pumped up in the winter times, because and you get access to all those fish in one spot. It's not like they're scattered throughout columns. Whereas later on in the late spring, early summer, you'll have fish that are scattered all, in each column. So, you've got more options and ways to fish them.
Yep.
But at the same token, you may have a little less congregated fish,
And what kind of lures? You mentioned the size of I assume you're talking jig heads there when you're talking.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what kind of lures do you like?
I love throwing soft plastics and hair jigs. I do some custom tied hair jigs, stuff that and you can buy hair jigs straight off the shelf, but I like long hair and a couple of hackles coming out to make my bucktails, that profile 6 to even 7 inches if I could get it. Whereas a lot of times buying it at the store, you're getting stuff that may, go out to 4 inches. So, I really like custom tied hair jigs. I like my soft plastics with the profile of a shad. And of course, lead heads, that's going to vary. Sometimes I'll use a lot of flukes on round ball jig heads. I use a lot of swim baits on, swim style heads. But, I would say I'm a big soft plastic swim bait guy and hair jigs probably. It's my favorites.
That's cool. And even with your customers?
Yeah. Okay. It's, customers I find really acceptable to, learning the swim baits. And with a swim bait, you can fish those columns really efficiently. Yeah, if he's up, you just burn it a little faster. If he's mid column, just count it down a little bit. If he's on the bottom, just wait till it hits the bottom and touch and feel. So swim baits are really, really versatile, and stripers love them. When you start getting those fish that kind of scattered throughout the column, and let's just say you're going to work a bait that's, that handles from 0 to 10 foot of water. Well, you're checked out of those other columns, I guess probably one of my favorite hard baits per se might be a rattle trap or lipless crankbait, where you can, again, if the fish are up shallow, you're reading them, you're seeing them, you're feeling that vibe, you can fish it shallow, or you can let it go all the way to the bottom and do the exact same thing. You can work those bottom drops. So lipless crankbaits are another good one in my arsenal.
Cool. So
you can always tie on the top water later on.
And that sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Talk about too, using the current to your advantage. Are you? I assume you're having them cast, up current and letting the current, do some of the work for you, and talk about retrieve speed and does that change? Like, right now we're in the winter pattern here in Florida, and Luke, that redfish I sent you a text of, it was funny. We were kind of burning some paddle tails over this flat and weren't getting anything. And my brother Luke caught two, and I was watching. I was like, man, you were like going so stinking slow. And this next cast, I went super slow, like almost felt uncomfortable slow for a paddle tail. And that was when that nice redfish smashed it. So talk about that in terms of retrieve speed and using the current.
Yeah, it's I get that question a lot, depending on, in different events that I've talked at. And I hear a lot of people, say, they try to fish as light as they can. I'm kind of the opposite. I love fishing. I love fishing heavy. And sometimes you need to fish slow, and heavy and slow. Sometimes, if you think about it with your head, it's kind of, well, daggone, if the weight's falling, how fast can you fish it slow? But if you have heavy weight and a lot of current, you got to kind of keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the Roanoke this time of year, she's ripping. The rivers to the south of us are running half throttle of what we see the Roanoke right now. So I fish kind of heavy, but yet it's a slow presentation, and I'm getting a sweep with that current, just because the current's flowing so strong.
Yep.
If that water wasn't flowing that strong, then I would certainly lighten it up and fish a lot slower presentation in the wintertime. But a striper doesn't mind cold water, so you'd be kind of surprised at what, you'll be surprised at when what they'll thump it. They'll remain aggressive even when the temperatures are cold. So I don't mind fishing a little bit heavy, a little bit faster presentation.
And
the other day we were fishing. It was the day before we had a really, really good bite. Had a trip the next day we went, and we were having to fish extremely slow. Matter of fact, it was a day kind of in that same correlation you were talking about with that redfish. It was the same week, but we were pitching soft plastics up, and it was going a lot slower than what I wanted. So we'd caught a couple fish on each stop. I was like, man, one of these stops we're going to have, one of these stops I have 10 to 15 fish on. We just got to find the right one.
Yeah.
And I had made a cast or something, flipped my bell over, let it fall, hit the bottom, and I turned around to hit my remote on my trolling motor, and it kind of shoved me off line. I actually got out of the rip, and the boat kind of kicked out. When it did, it just drug the bait off the ledge. That dead stick, I had the rod in my hand, I wasn't moving at all, and thump, I caught a fish. Like, daggone, I caught that one by accident. So I told the crew that was with me, I said, gang, I just caught that one dead sticking, and I said, I'm going to go to a smaller profile bait. And I went from a 4-inch, 5-inch paddle tails down to a 3-inch paddle tail, pitched up there again, let it hit the bottom, and drug it off the ledge, and bam, we caught a fish, bam, we caught a fish, bam, we caught a fish. And I was like, man. So I kind of went back down the river to the spots where we had picked up one fish or two fish, and, throwing that smaller profile, just dead sticking. Just dead sticking. We picked up a couple more fish. So
That's crazy.
It's kind of wild. And the day before they were thumping 5-inch paddle tails. Like, I mean, you could burn it. Now let it hit the bottom and burn it. Bam, they would eat it. So.
And when you're dead sticking, do you have scent too on it?
We had actually, one of them had scent, one of them didn't have scent. When I get in a scenario where these fish want it dead sticking, which happens every year, you may get a day or two out of the month that's the way they want to eat. Or it could be in a situation where they're not feeding and you just get the lure in front of their face and drag it so slow that he kind of force feeds him. But yes, if the bite's off that much, I will use scent. And seems like it picks up it may save your day,
That's cool. So what's it like? You've been talking, obviously about Roanoke. When you go to these other rivers, do you have to do I assume you use the same kind of lure, same tactics, and maybe even speak of other river systems that you fish for stripers. What's different about their patterns, or is there much difference?
Not a ton of difference in patterns. I also fish the Tar Pamlico system and also the Noose River system. And all three, Roanoke, Pamlico Tar, and Noose, all three have a population of stripers that go up to spawn. And all three systems fish very similar, with the exception of the water depth. The Roanoke's 3 times deeper than the other two rivers. But again, I love throwing soft plastics on all three of them. The other two seem like you can throw more hard baits on just because of the depth of the water. You can cover the other systems that shallower water, with hard baits pretty easy. But in my opinion, the soft plastics, man, you can just cover so much ground and just be so versatile with them.
Yep, love it. All right, I want to switch a little bit. Tips on catching the big striper. Everyone always asks, hey, how do I catch the big one? What we found down here right now in Florida is once we find a little pocket off of a grass flat, most of those trout, they're all in there. They're trying to find a little bit warmer water. Bad news is once you find a hole that's got a bunch of small trout, it seems like that's the majority of what's there. Rarely will you start catching a 24 or larger trout. Is it the same there? Are these things schooling where you got the massive ones and the small ones together, or is there any specific trend that you've seen to catch the big ones?
The fish seem to run in size classes.
Okay.
That's pretty standard. Especially right now, you'll see if you're in 14-inch fish, you're in 14s. If you're in 22s, you're in 22s. But it seems like some of my bigger fish have come just by utilizing bigger baits. And by, that's the reason why I custom tie my bucktails, is because I want a larger profile. And now that's a double-edged sword. A small striper will eat a big bait, but a lot of times you'll sacrifice a few fish for a bigger fish if you're throwing a bigger swim bait, a bigger profile.
Yep.
So that's going to be specifically angler preference, and the fortunate thing for me as a guide, let's just say if I have a party of 3 that want to come fishing, I can keep somebody interested in throwing a bigger bait throughout the day. If it's, hey, John, throw this big bait for a half hour. Hey, Ricky, throw this big bait now for a half hour. You can kind of keep it, and somebody will stick a big fish.
Yep.
They just won't stick as many day in and day out throwing a larger profile. But if you want to see what's out there, upsize that bait and just stay with it.
In any different part of the water column, or is it all kind of similar for the big ones?
All kind of similar. Okay. All kind of similar.
Huh.
Yep. That big fish. I think when they're making their run, when they're making, okay, today we're going to be moving. Let's just say, hey, fish are moving today. They're going to be on the deeper ledges following those contour lines. When they stop to rest, if they find an eddy, or a seam that they can get out of that current, like, hey, let's take a rest, let's take a break, and they pull off, the big fish will do the exact same thing, just like the small fish. They'll find something to get out of that current and rest, or they'll find an area they can go up and feed, and it could be pushing shad into a ledge, or it could be sitting in an eddy, waiting for something to come by, and they just reach out and grab it while they're resting. And I honestly think that's how those fish, I think they'll make a burst, go up the river a couple miles, chill out for a day or so, make another burst, chill out for a bit. And I say that because we've gotten on concentrations of fish year after year. Let's just say we're catching them in X part of the river, and we start to see those fish decline, or those numbers decline, and man, we may have to run up the river 3 more miles before we get back into, what I think is the same school. And it's been that way year after year. Otherwise, we'll get on the first big push of fish. We'll follow them upriver, keep fishing them until they kind of either dwindle out or we lose them. And then a lot of times what I'll do is drop back till I'll find a next school. And then we'll take those guys up until the system's full of fish everywhere. And then we basically, then it's to our advantage just to fish where other people aren't.
Yep. Do you guys have bridges going across that, and docks?
We do.
Okay.
We do.
Cool.
There's several bridges. There's not a ton of docks, but what replaces the docks on the river systems down here are log jams.
The natural looking dock.
That's right.
Huh. And I assume you guys fish those as a type of structure. Do you get the big stripers hanging around the bridge pilings too?
Definitely. Yeah. And the bridge pilings, behind every one of them's a little current break.
Yep.
And if, as an angler, if you can't make a cast right up to that bridge pile and let it fall, then just ease right up there to it and kind of drop shot it. That eddy behind those bridge pilings, and you'd be amazed at how many fish should gather behind them. And you may have to hit 15 of them before you get the right one. But and your electronics are pretty daggone good. If you're electronic guru, you can ride by them and not have to fish every one. Just kind of ride by and scan them.
Yep. And
you'll see what you need to see.
I love it, man. Well, I'm looking at the time. I told you it's gonna be 35 minutes. We're already at like 42. This has been fun. We're gonna have to get you back on, and we only hit one species today, so
we only hit one scenario, one species.
Exactly.
I did a show the other day, and they said we'll give you an hour. I said, man, what am I going to talk about in an hour? I said we can only talk about one thing.
I love it, man. Any other, final tips or a popular thing we always do is just the mistakes, because you've been on the water forever. I'm certain you've made a ton of mistakes, like we all have. The things that you see the average weekend warrior doing that you're like, oh man, I wish I could just tell this guy or gal this. Anything come to mind in terms of just common mistakes that would help them save time?
Joe, there's two things on that, man, and one is we all try to become better anglers, and everybody has access to more stuff now than we've ever had. Internet, magazines, YouTube, print. Man, there's nothing that can take the place of time on the water.
Yep.
And if you can imagine what you learn on YouTube, what you learn in print, what you learn at, if you just keep your mind open and keep fishing and don't try to put something in a box, you know what I mean? Like, the water's too cold to do this, or the water's too hot to do this, or just, if you feel it, try it, do it, execute it. If it doesn't work, then hey, move on. But man, you'd be amazed at how many times we catch fish that, hey, this should never be happening this way, but we're doing it. This isn't the right time. This is the wrong lure. It's, just don't put as an angler, don't put yourself in a box. That'd probably be my major thing that I try to tell people.
Love it.
Don't put yourself in a box, man, and be open-minded. And if something doesn't work, then just, try something else, man. Keep moving, covering ground. And even with today's electronics, man, it's, and if you're fishing in an area, you're not getting bit. I always, some guys that I've helped get in the guide business and what have you, sometimes we'll be talking fishing or what have you. And I'll say, man, if you're not feeling it, if you're not getting bit, if you're not seeing fish on your machine, change zip codes. And they'd be like, what do you mean by change zip codes? Don't move to the next point. Move 3 miles down the river. Move 4 miles down the river. And those big leaps, if you're not into something, if you're not getting bit, you make a big leap sometimes, man, it's all the difference in the world.
Super helpful. And then, of course, the final one is, if you really want to leapfrog your friends and get years of knowledge in one day, is hire a guide, right? Hire Captain Mitch. We do that personally. You can learn so much. And sometimes it's just the small stuff, right? To see how, and like you said earlier, it's not about stealing spots or, hey, show me the areas, because there's a reason you guys are still in business. I mean, you're going to the best spot during that day. It's because it's changing usually every single day down here. It's changing every single tide cycle, and certainly seasonally. But yeah, hire a guide. And I know Fish IBX is the name. Does that actually take them to your website, the Eastern NC Fishing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool.
You can go right to fishibx.com, and if we're really busy fishing like we are this time of year, sometimes the website gets a little slack, but I try to keep it posted, and we try to do the social media stuff on the daily. So, check that out as well. Instagram Fish IBX and Facebook Fish IBX, and we try to drive that. Try to drive that machine daily and, and stay current with it. So kind of see what we're doing, man.
Yeah. I saw just, I think it was just yesterday on your Instagram, a couple of nice stripers. So it's happening. This is the time.
It's time, man. And it'll run right on through. So, it'll only get better. It's good stuff right now. Hard to beat, and it only gets better.
Cool. Well, brother, this has been really fun. I learned a lot. I am kind of itching to get up there and do some of that. I'm going to wait until maybe some of the snow stops happening. I'm a Florida boy, born and raised here, so it's a little too much for me. But I definitely want to get up there. Luke and I have talked about it forever, and we'll have to chat offline and try to find a time to do that, and hopefully do like a little live video recording out there for the podcast. That'd be a blast. Doing
I want to get you guys to come in that way. You get to see it, feel it type thing. So I'll get you guys up, man, as soon as the weather breaks, and we're gonna keep right on fishing. I got trips tomorrow, next day, Monday, so we had to shovel a little bit of snow off the boat for tomorrow, but hopefully all this winter stuff gone out of here for the season. Yeah.
Awesome, brother. Well, Capt Mitchell Blake, thank you so much for the time. Everyone, go check out Fish IBX. Subscribe to them on Instagram, Facebook, etc., and reach out to him. Man, just a super nice guy, full of knowledge. I love how you're willing to share. Not all guides have been as easy to deal with. And we love when we find people. We love when we find people like you that are just willing to share. Even that first video, I never met you or even talked to you. And then One Fish, Two Fish had you as the guest, and right away Luke and I and then Tony saw it. He's like, man, we gotta connect with this guy. He's it's tough to find people who are good in front of the camera, can talk real well, and do podcasts, and are willing to share. So we really appreciate you, man.
Man, I appreciate you guys having me, and if you guys ever need anything, just reach out, man. We'll be here.
Cool. Awesome, brother. Everyone, go check him out, and make sure if you haven't, checked out or subscribed, reviewed the Salt Strong Fishing Podcast, please do it. And we will put some show notes. We'll add some pictures and stuff from Mitchell's page, all at saltstrong.com/podcast. And we'll have all the past episodes there as well. So saltstrong.com/podcast. And guys, thank you so much for all the support, all the love. Can't do it without you. And if we can help you or better serve you in any way, let us know. Otherwise, we'll talk to you on the next episode. We out. Peace.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul.